All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to focus on something called the critical path analysis. Now, it's a fairly big topic, so I hope you are ready to go through all of this, but it's very interesting and cool. And I personally like it a lot, and it is a bit long, but once you get through it, it's pretty chill. All right, so the place where critical path analysis is very useful is usually when you have to follow a set of instructions, all right? Do a bunch of tasks. Now, for example, say your job is to make a pizza, all right? So what we're going to do is make a pizza. We all love pizzas. So what we're going to do to make the pizza is we're first going to defrost the base, okay? We have to prepare toppings. We have to place the sauce and toppings on the pizza. We have to heat the oven and cook the pizza, okay? Fairly straightforward process. Now, let's say these processes take some amount of time. Let's say defrosting takes 5 seconds or 5 minutes. Preparing toppings takes 6 minutes. Sauce and toppings on pizza takes 4, and then 8, and then 22 minutes, just like that. Now, what I've done here is I've given these tasks names because I'll be using them later on, labels, because I'll be using them later on, and I don't want to rewrite the whole task. So I'll just say task A, B, C, and D. Now, once you have your tasks listed, all right, you may realize that you don't have to do the tasks in the order that they are listed. You don't have to. Sometimes you can do the task beforehand, but for some tasks, you need to have done a certain task before it. For example, to place the sauce and toppings on the pizza, you must have prepared the toppings beforehand. What this is called is a prerequisite task. Now, what's a prerequisite task? It's a task that needs to be completed for another task to be attempted, okay? So here, B is a prerequisite task for C. Similarly, you need to have heated the oven before cooking the pizza, all right? The base must be defrosted before cooking the pizza, okay? So all these are prerequisites. Now, once you've identified your tasks that are independent, that don't have any prerequisites, and the tasks that do have, what you can do is you can go ahead and make what's called a precedence table, okay? A precedence table or precedence table is created like this. You have 3 columns. In the first column, you have your tasks. In the second, you have their times. Okay, very simple. In the third column, you have the prerequisites for that task. Okay, so for task A, is there any prerequisites? Do you need to do anything before defrosting the base? No. Okay, do you have any prerequisites for preparing the toppings? No, in the current steps, no. Do you have a prerequisite for C? Well, yes, like we discussed, we need to have prepared the toppings beforehand. All right. For D, are there any prerequisites? No. For E, do you have any prerequisites? Well, let's go through it, right? You need to have heated the oven, so definitely D should be included in here, okay? Next, do you need to have the sauce and toppings prepared on the pizza? Yes, so you need to have C in there. And the base must be defrosted to cook it. So that is also there. Now, you might say, oh, but you need to have the toppings prepared before you can put them on, right? You need to have done that. Yes, but it's okay because we've already considered that when saying that we are putting in C. C is a prerequisite, all right? So if we are doing C, that means we've already done B. That's okay, all right? Now, once we've done this, what we can draw is what's called a precedence network, okay? So a precedence network is one where you have your start point, okay, where you have no tasks done, and then you can go ahead and do some tasks, okay? So you start off by having edges, all right? All right, I'll write this a bit better. All right, and you include the tasks that have no prerequisites. So A, B, and D don't have any prerequisites, so I can start off by doing them at the beginning, all right? So I can do task A, which takes 5 minutes. I can do task B, which takes 6 minutes, and task D, which takes 8 minutes, okay? Now I want to do the next tasks, okay? So the next task that I can do is, for example, C, right? Now to do task C, I must have done task B beforehand. So I need to get to this state. This is a state where I've finished task B. And from this state onwards, I can now do task C, which would take 4 minutes. Okay? And now to be able to do task E, I need to be at a state, again, right? I need to be at this state where I've finished task A, C, and D. All right, I need to be at this state. So, all right, that's the process. And now I can go ahead and do task E. And now, task E taking 22 minutes. Now and only now have I finished. Okay, so that's my finished state. And that's kind of the process of building a precedence network. You go through, you add in the lines that you, add in the tasks that you can do without any prerequisites, and then you go ahead and see what states you need to be at, what tasks should you have done to go ahead and do the next task. Okay, you need, what state do you need to be at? For example, here, I need to be at the state where A, C, and D are finished. Okay, I think this is better explained with another example. But before we move on to there, we have to talk about one more thing. That is called the critical path. That's the whole topic here, right? The critical path. The critical path is essentially the longest path from start to finish. All right. In this case, the longest path is doing B, C, and E, which has 32. All right. Which means that the minimum time needed to make the pizza is 32. Because you can do A and D simultaneously, and you can do B simultaneously, and then do C after B, and then you have to do E after the first three are finished. All right, that's kind of the logic here. All right, you need to be at a state where A, B, and C are finished, and you get the point, right? The point is that you find the longest path in this precedence network, and that's going to be the minimum time required to finish the pizza. All right, and like I said, we're going to go over another example. All right, so imagine you have this precedence table. All right, you have A, B, C, and D, and the times are as follows. Okay, you have no prerequisites, no prerequisites. A is a prerequisite here, and B and A are both a prerequisite here. Now, how do we go about making this graph? Again, we start at our start point, okay, where we have done no tasks. Then we do the tasks without any. Actually, I'll start it a bit lower, just so I have more space. And then we start the tasks which don't have any prerequisites, okay? So we can do task A and B, task A, task B, all right? Which takes 2 minutes, B takes 3 minutes, okay? Now, to do task C, I need to be at a state where I finished task A. Okay, so let's say I get to this state where I finished task A. I can go ahead and start task C immediately. I don't have to wait for anything else. So let's say I do task C from this point onwards, and it takes 1 minute. Now, to do task D, I need to be at a point where I've done task A and B. Okay, so what I could do is, right, I can remove this, and I can just be like, you know what, whoopsie daisy, I can remove this, and I can be like, you know what, I'll just combine these two and be like, okay, you get here, now you need to do C, and you can also do D. Okay, now this is one way to go about it, but the problem is this way is wrong, and the reason is because this state is one where we have finished A and B, because those are the two ending up on this node, right? So this is that state, but this also says that for C, B is also a prerequisite, which is not the case. Okay, that's what you would read here, that B is a prerequisite for C, which is incorrect. So what we do instead is we use dotted lines. Okay, we're going to go back to what we originally had, this, and we're going to say that this is a state where I've finished B and I've also finished A. So that's how you would represent this particular scenario. And now I can go ahead and do task D and end up on a good little finishing point. I hope that's a bit more clear as to why we use dotted lines, because we don't want to give that false impression that a certain task is a prerequisite when it's not. Okay, this makes it fairly clear that A is a prerequisite for D, all right, and we're also avoiding adding in any extra time. Okay, so because it's a dotted line, we don't really account for any time for it. Okay, so again, the critical path here is 3 plus 3, which is 6. All right, that's the minimum time required to finish this task. All right, This dotted line is what we call a dummy link, but the name itself isn't as important. What's more important is the actual thing here, all right? The actual usefulness. So most of the time, right, when you have a graph like this, it's fairly simple to find the critical path, find the longest path. But sometimes it's not as easy. Sometimes what you need to do is you need to follow an algorithm. Okay, so imagine you have this this path, this network. Give me a second to draw it up. All right, so once we have this graph up, right? So I have this as F, sorry. I apologize for the little dirty graph. I had to just come up with it on the moment. But I had to draw it up like in the moment. So imagine you have a graph like this. It's a bit more complicated. It's a bit harder to find the critical path. What you do is you use something called forward scanning. All right, essentially what you do is you go from every state, from the start to finish, and find out the minimum time to start that state, like to reach that state. So for the first one, we can start at time equals 0, right? We can start immediately. To get to this state over here, right, the minimum time is you have to do 8. So the minimum time to get here is 6. Now the minimum time to get to this one here is equal to 4, right? You have to do task B. Now the minimum time to get to this one, all right, is equal to either, like, you have to do task C and D. Now these can be done simultaneously, right? Because you just had the prerequisite as B. So even if you do them simultaneously, C is going to take longer. So the minimum time that's going to take to get here is 4, which it took to get to this one, plus doing task C, all right, which is going to be 7, all right? Now the minimum time to get to this one is either doing task A and then B, and then E, which would be 11, all right, or having done up to this state and then doing 7, all right? So this gives me a 14 or 11. Which one's bigger? 14, because you must have done all of these to be able to progress, right? So therefore, the earliest you can progress is time equals 14, all right? 14 minutes into the process. So we put this at 14, all right? Now, to finish off, you need to have done task G. So the earliest you can finish is in 18 minutes or days or whatever. All right. I hope that's a bit more clear. You go to every state and find the biggest way, biggest number, biggest part, time, whatever, to get to that state. All right. And why do you find the biggest? Because all branches, right? If there's multiple branches ending up on the same node, right? All of these branches can be done simultaneously. Whichever takes longest, all right, all of these branches have to be done because they're all prerequisites. Whichever takes the longest, that means that we have to have that done, all right, to be able to progress. Okay, so that's how you can find how long it takes, what the critical path is, all right, and whatever value you get at the finish one, that's your critical path. Now what we can do is to add a bit more flavor to it. That's already your critical path, right? That's your maximum sum. What we can do is we can do a backward scan as well. So we start off by giving this as 18, all right? And essentially, we try to find, giving it a second value called 18, essentially what we are trying to find is the latest starting time so that there's no more delays, all right? So here, and what we do every time we do this is every time we go along an edge, we subtract the current value, the edge's value from the current one. So if we have 18, we go along 4, so we make that a 14, okay? Similarly, we go here, okay, to this one over here. We have a 7 here, and we come along a 7, so we subtract 7 from 14, leaving us with a 7 here. Now, we come back to this one over here. We have a 4 where we have a 4. Now, we can go along one of the two paths. We can either have done C or done D. What we do is, all right, now we take the differences, right, 4 and 1. So we take the smallest number we can get. Oh, sorry. We take the smallest one of these two, all right, and put this here, or however many branches end up here, all right, and then 4 take 4 is 0. Similarly here, okay, coming along this edge, we have, it takes 5, all right, so 14 take 5 is 9. Okay, so the reason for doing all of this is we can find what's called the slack time, or the time that you can waste, or the time that you can delay in starting, such that the completion of the entire task is not affected. All right, the minimum time that it takes, it does not change. All right, so if that's the point we're trying to make it. So the point is that if I look at this one and I just wait here idly for 3 minutes, nothing's going to change because it does not cause the process to be delayed. I'm still going to end up here as 14 instead. All right, and everything's going to be fine. That's so the slack time is equal to, for each node, right, is the forward scan we found, take the backward, or really the other way around, sorry. So you can kind of allow some space there, all right? So allow some slack time there. And that's all there is to it. Again, like I said, it is a lot, but it's fairly simple once you start understanding what's happening. And once you do a few questions, it will feel very intuitive. So just go ahead, smash some questions out, and I promise you, you'll be feeling great. And if you don't hesitate at all to ask me some questions, okay? That's all fine. Hey guys, two things. If you do have any questions regarding the content we just covered, just go ahead and drop that in the comments. I'll make sure to get to that as soon as possible. And secondly, if you like the video, or if you got anything that was useful from it, make sure to check out the website, Prep Folders. There's so many more videos like this, so many more resources, practice questions, and all the lot. So just go ahead and have a look. If you need help, there's some tutors and mentors there as well. So just have some fun over there. And yeah, we'll see you on the other side.